This is Val Schober with Module 8, Internal and External Publics. Applying the concepts learned, I used internal and external public and the communication used within the Hutchinson Public School District. Internal includes superintendent, school board, administration, all school staff, and students. External includes parents, school support groups, community, city officials, and media. I used the Lucid chart diagrams primarily due to the fact that I am more familiar with Google Apps and I did like the design format. How I analyzed the two publics. I looked at internal as within the school system and external as outside of the school system. Looking a little more deeply at each one, the superintendent communicates orally, written, and digitally on a regular basis. Orally, he communicates more with administration, school board members, and staff at administration building. He does communicate written, but that is probably less frequently as school letters go out to families less and less every year. He communicates digitally by emailing as a main form of communication, and he puts information on the school website. Orally and written are create means for two-way communication as well as digital. And then, like I said, he posts updates on the school website. He participates in ongoing communication training so that he's more familiar on how to communicate effectively with others. He has a weekly email to staff on Monday mornings. And he composes a yearly school newsletter, which goes out in July, and it goes out digitally, and it goes out by mail. And he is regularly visible in the community. The school board communicates orally and digitally. Orally, they communicate at school board meetings within each other, or within to each other, and they are all community members, so they communicate within the community at their place of business. So they're doing a lot of communicating, I would say more orally and digitally by email. Written information is prepared and distributed by the board clerk, so they don't specifically do that information. And the board clerk composes minutes that are available on the school website. Administration, this includes principals and vice principals at each school, as well as like any athletics administration as well. They communicate orally, written, and digitally regularly with school staff and external public. Orally forms of communication include staffing during team meetings, open communication through IEP meetings with staff and parents, and they do communicate openly with parents as they see them or as questions arise. Written, they do some of that, but not as much. They do send out parent letters occasionally. Administration uses a lot of digital forms of communication, such as sending out emails to staff weekly, sending out email letters to parents. The school has a school-wide text and email system used to communicate school-wide announcements. So there's a lot of digital forms of communication going out to parents, public, and staff. They put information out on the Facebook and Twitter accounts, so that's another form of digital communication. Administration participates in ongoing communication training as well. The Director of Human Resources, because Hutch is such a big school district, he is the one that primarily communicates with the community. So if anything happens that the community needs to be aware of, he is the one that composes the information to go out either digitally, orally, or written. And all administration are regularly visible in the community and at community events. All school staff, which includes licensed staff and certified staff and uncertified staff, all support staff, everybody. They communicate orally, written, and digitally. As far as orally, that would include just talking to each other. Other examples would be team meetings, classroom meetings, grade level meetings. Again, written communication is done less, but they will send out information written to parents. As far as teachers, they digitally communicate with each other. They email each other, each staff. They email support staff. They email parents. They have the school-wide district has Skyward, which is a system that can also be used to communicate with parents and parents to communicate with teachers. A lot of teachers have established Google Classrooms with their students as another form of communication. They email students. That's primarily in the 7th through 12th grades. In the older ones, the teachers do directly email students. And all students 7 through 12 have Chromebooks, so that enables them to do more of the emailing in the Google Classroom. So school staff use a variety of communications methods to regularly communicate with parents, such as some of the things that I've just talked about. They also create social media pages for parents. Some teachers have specific classroom Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter pages so that parents of that classroom can get on and look at some different things and pictures and things that the students are doing at school. I do believe that the teachers in USD 308 work hard to establish two-way communication with staff and parents. Then looking at the students, they communicate with teachers orally and digitally, also on a regular basis. They communicate with their family members, information given to them, which I kind of laugh at that because I know that some students do that more than other students, communicating with their family. That's why it's also important for school staff to communicate with parents. Google Classrooms, like I said, are used to communicate with teachers with students, students to teachers and teachers to students. So there are a lot of ways that the school has established internal communication school-wide that also facilitates two-way communication. So looking at external communication, parents, they communicate with administration and school staff orally and digitally as needed. Orally would be phone calls, face-to-face meetings, parent-teacher conferences, open houses at the beginning of the school year. They can email teachers as questions arise. They do also have opportunities to communicate at school board meetings. There is a time during each school board meeting that they give parents and community the opportunity to speak at those. School support groups, that would include groups such as PTO, Booster Club, FFA, any kind of athletic group. And I mean, those are just a few examples. Those groups usually have at least one school representative at each group. They communicate with the administration monthly by email and verbally when needed. And updates about the groups and the things that they're doing are posted on social media sites. Most groups have their own social media accounts through Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter so that parents, community, school personnel can look at the things that are also going on within all of those groups. Community, they receive school emails and newsletters. They are able to attend school board meetings and school functions. So again, these are verbal and digital forms of communication. And they can communicate with school personnel as needed, orally or by email. The school does do a very nice job to try to establish open communication. City officials communicate with superintendent, school board members, and administration orally and email. Open communication when needed more frequently. And the city office is given written materials to hand out to people as needed, such as brochures to new family members that come into the community. Media, school reports and updates obtained by the superintendent, administration, and school board weekly. Media accounts usually receive most of their communication from the Director of Human Resources so that the school makes sure that information that gets out to the media is accurate. So evaluating two-way communication is encouraged with all public entities. Two-way communication is done in a variety of forms, which I've kind of addressed throughout this. And then evaluate, although USD 308, I believe, does do a job of creating open lines of two-way communication in a variety of forms. I know that there's also always room for improvement. So looking at some strength, when evaluating each group, the subgroup that I thought excels more at communication would be staff and administration. I think the staff and the teachers do a wonderful job trying to connect more with parents, supporting school support groups, and communicating with each other. I think that all goes hand in hand with excelling students and students' learning and success. So I do think the administration also does well at composing communication appropriately to parents and community. They communicate with staff sometimes more on a need-to-know basis versus having more open communication, just in the things that I have observed. Some of the weakness concerns, I would say, is that internal communications with city officials could be better. I think that's one area that USD 308 lacks in. They could create better relationships and two-way communication lines with each other. Although I really do think that they do a good job overall, but I think maybe even with the city officials, they could do a little bit better with creating those relationships and two-way communication. Our superintendent of 308, this is his first year at Hutchinson, and Hutchinson is a bigger school. So coming from a smaller school district, I think that communicating with more of the external sources are a little bit harder for him. And so as he's getting to know people and getting to know the community, I do believe that that will get much better. As far as critiquing my graph, I do think that this shows lots of internal and external communication examples. And I then think that that creates support for student learning and success in everything that I've talked about, as students is the #1 priority. And it is apparent with the multiple means of communication between internal and external publics that student learning and success is very important. As I'm critiquing my chart, I did notice as I was kind of reading through that I missed one word, and I can't remember what it is as far as spelling check. And I wish I would have used more pictures. I'm not as creative, so putting pictures in to support some of my things I should have probably done, but it might have looked a little busy. But overall, I feel like I did a very good job. So thank you.